Hi, I'm Jeffrey O'Brien. Welcome to the last event of the Holloway Poetry Series. This is the last Holloway event, but it's also its own special standalone thing. It's not strictly speaking part of the series. It's central to the series' intention and source. Tonight we'll hear from the 2009 Roberta C. Holloway Lecturer in the Practice of Poetry, Ariana Reines, in recognition of her significant creative work and to express gratitude for her attention to our undergraduate poets this semester, an attention, I should add, that didn't stay in the classroom but followed her home, because I hear that she had a second ghost or shadow workshop that convened at her house for students who couldn't be accommodated by the workshop, so thank you doubly. Before I go any further, though, I really want to thank Charlie Legere, my co-curator, for both his visible and invisible work, and all our undergraduate interns, Jessica Cox, Cameron Jackson, Steve Lance, Roxanne Rashidi, and a special thanks to Rebecca Treadwell, who extended magically and rationalized the publicity for the readings. So thank you very much for that, because we're kind of hapless. All right, now I just need to give you a little bit of boilerplate about the Roberta C. Holloway Lectureship. Preceding Ariana are other Holloway poets, such as Michael Palmer, Yusuf Komunyakaa, and Carson. I see that Lisa Robertson is here, who did it a couple years ago, and our own Robert House and Lynn Higinian. This unique lectureship came into existence in 1981 through a bequest given to the university as part of the estate of Roberta C. Holloway, who received her BA degree in English with honors from UC Berkeley in 1923, and her PhD in English here only 23 years later, in 1945. As required by the terms of the bequest, the committee supervising the lectureship was chaired by Josephine Miles for as long as she was an active faculty member. Josephine Miles, who died in 1985 at the age of 74, was the first woman to be tenured in Berkeley's English department. Perhaps more important, she was a nationally recognized and much honored poet whose work now has canonical status in the history of American poetry of the 20th century. It's customary, therefore, to begin this event with a Miles poem, which I will now do. It's called Nadirs. There were the clerks of the zenith and the figures. There were winter-type clouds over the winter. There were summer-type clouds over the summer figures, and to speak to each there was a way, the same. I went up to the clerk of the nadir and said, "See me, in noctions of one kind or another, under a winter sun, and see safely to the zenith, how I welter under a blooming moon. All is mine, but I like it, by each gesture towards the other or one." So besit, said the clerks of the nadir and the zenith as they turned to their own accounting of afternoon. They were busy. How busy were they? They required waiting in line for the sun to go down over the eastern figures and the moon to arise over the western figures, moving from plane to plane. All right, let's turn to Ariana. Even though biographical information seems to be distributed throughout Ariana's work, very carefully, I'm going to get it out of the way up front so we can move from her life into her use of it as lyric substance. Ariana Reines is the author of The Cow, which won the Alberta Prize and was published by Fence Books in 2006, and of Coeur de Lion, which came out from Malamar Editions in 2007. A third volume of poetry, Mercury, will be forthcoming from Fence in the near future. Ariana also has two forthcoming translation projects, My Heart Laid Bare, the intimate writings of Baudelaire, which will be published by Malamar later this spring, and a collection of interviews and documents of Griselidis Real called Little Black Book, Days and Nights of an Anarchist Whore, which will come out from Semiotext this fall. Reines was also commissioned last year by the Foundry Theatre to write a play, which resulted in Telephone, a three-acter about technology's mediations of address, based on Avital Ronell's The Telephone book. Telephone had a sold-out run at the Cherry Lane Theatre in New York this past February. And this fall she'll be performing in the Works in Process series at the Guggenheim Museum in New York. There has been writing on art. There have been photographic essays of Nazi architecture. She keeps very busy. But to turn to the poetry. Ariana Reines is in love with the second person. The penultimate poem in The Cow is simply called You, and also manages to end on that word. It's brief enough, like most moments of good address, that I can read it to you. You. A night so thick a suet rubs sand into its lips. Because I've got to feel it, the speaker is going to become alive, darning the event. She said, I looked up and was assuaged. I carried to my mouth the ointment of the cloud that had ceased to move, that had ceased to pass over me. I found a secret duct amid these flows of air, and then they left off their coquetries, their complications. The beauty makes me feel it really happened. The sky had stars in it, they glittered like calories upon the world. Energy of the night, I upbraided innards that were mine own in order to become you. Through a secret duct that lies athwart both the body's interior and city infrastructure, the poem finds a way inside the monumentality of the act of addressing another and makes it intimate, temporary, and unimposing. This finding is disdainful of embarrassment, unafraid to deploy the word beauty, but mindful of the effort, the heaving up of the self, as she would put it, that disdaining embarrassment requires. You have to honor the cosmic scale of this space of address, even while contracting it from stars to calories, nights to innards, bringing metaphors back to local earth as the speaker comes alive and attempts to get near its addressee. Despite the becoming small and becoming bodily that ethical address seems to require of this poet, Ariana's second book, Coeur de Lion, expands Yu's scene beyond the discrete short poem to become everything, a book-length love poem. Its title refers both to a cheese and to the regal attribute of courage. So it's tempting to say it's a book about the courage to be cheesy while speaking of love. But this is not right, nor enough. Here's a passage from the first page. The other night, when I couldn't sleep next to you and I said I wanted to cry, and you said I should, and I looked down and breathed, and then I did cry, and you tried to touch me, and you did, and you tried to kiss me, and you sort of did, and I was so scared that I love you and you don't love me. I felt stupid when I put my pants on, and I felt stupid when I put my shirt on, and I felt stupid when I went to the other room to get my book, Beware of Pity by Stefan Zweig. Those ands fall down the left margin in a biblical parataxis of begetting. But instead of spawning generations, we get the successive, perfectly awkward gestures of early relationship, both moving and courting banality. The passage captures the pleasure and terror of courtship as the same thing, a not yet knowing how to read the you. And it's no accident that it comes on the first page of Coeur de Lion, when we readers don't yet know how to read its you. We are still in the other night, don't know what kind of poetry, casual as speech, yet coursing with form, addresses and hails us. The poem will spend the rest of itself teaching us to read this you and I of address, sometimes making the necessary mistake of thinking it can keep what it mentions of and to the beloved, without those mentions floating into exemplarity, but then admitting that they do. Quote, now that I am not addressing you, but the you of poetry, I am probably doing something horrible and destructive. But this I is the I of poetry, and it should be able to do more than I can do. Coeur de Lion has an unironic faith in this doubled I's capacity. It disdains the contemporary embarrassment or even career risk associated with writing love poetry, long after the troubadours with their linking rhymes and manic repetitions, or the Petrarchans with their paradoxes of fire and ice, have all gone still. But why should love poetry be embarrassing? There's been a lot of it, and it is heavily encumbered with trope and procedure, but there's been a lot of love, and it is similarly encumbered. The The passage I just quoted addresses many of the possible reasons for contemporary embarrassment that we could propose. First, a legitimate concern given to us by theory and literary criticism that to bring the beloved and its silent body into representation is to perform a blazoning, to render it in both senses, a quote, doing that is destructive and reductive, encasing the you and its parts in invisible quotation marks it can't protest. And then there's also a shame that one is speaking of private pleasure or even disappointment. While Iraq burns, citizens serve life sentences for nonviolent offenses, Proposition 8 passes, and the bees disappear. The passages quote something horrible and destructive, vaguely, but intensely vaguely, accommodates all those somethings too. There's a shame, in other words, about sheltering the I and the thou in a space free of everywhere else's depredation, within quotation marks now thought of not as a form of imprisonment of the addressee, but as an illegitimate isolation of both speaker and spoken from the history of the world, which is written, as Marx says, in letters of blood and fire. Reines has provisional answers for these fears. You let them in. You, quote, do more than destructive doing. You let the beloved speak in his own words, whether they're the words of his love letters or from the Gmail account you've broken into, or his bad novel. You let him respond to address within address, even if we understand that that response is still managed and selected, rendered. You represent his body not just by shining eyes, but by genitals and secretions. And you don't do this to shock. You do it over and over again until it's a local norm, happening with the real frequency of encounter these parts enjoy during courtship. You do it until both the you and the you of poetry have messy bodies. Then you name the book after a cheese, a processed product, far from the body that gave it substance and the bodies that then worked it. Title it after a food that comes to us from far away with its specific labor history irrecoverable. But mention within the poem's body that, quote, cheese too has a heart. And you pick a cheese that also refers us to a king eager to invade the Middle East. And you say of him in your poem, quote, some sources suggest it was a desire to be memorialized in verse by troubadours that attracted him to the Crusades. Then, after documenting Richard the Lionheart's zeal around killing both Arabs and Jews, you go back to reading your lover's email without permission. Ultimately, you keep giving the reader, that other you who can't help being addressed, the choice to be embarrassed by love poetry, or to have other readerly feelings reinstated there. And then, towards the end of the book, you model all that for her. Quote, all that medieval love poetry, with its military metaphors, the woman as the fortress, the errancies of gallant knights. Maybe long ago things were too solid, and now we live in an ether of X sentiments. Coeur de Lion is not only a love poem, but a poetics of reminder, quote, his cock's not even him, and he's not him either, and we aren't anything. It reminds us that in both poetry and instrumental speech, is a transitive verb, capable of turning a he into a him, and a him into something horrible and destructive. An ungrammatical conversion of subject into object, easy to frown upon, but too common in speech to dismiss as improper to the page. The poem also reminds us that love can be an intransitive verb. Quote, I love when Racine makes Phèdre say, I love, instead of I love you. It can stop short of a predicate in the act itself. The you missing but implied in the, quote, darning of the event Reines described in that poem called You from the Cow, with darn there, like render, both a mending and a curse. I go on for so long about Coeur de Lion, even though Ariana may not read from it tonight, because its particular set of risks and solutions to the problem of how to speak to a you, how to speak as an I, in the time of YouTube and MySpace, and an army of one, condenses what drives her through all her various projects. As she put it during a Q&A here last year while talking about using the first person, quote, The idea of addressing someone requires a great deal of force. You have to heave yourself up. I think by heave, Ariana means find some way to eject, lift, and shudder intimate pronouns into the formal field of lyric without their being entirely overwhelmed. So that the you and I of poetry, its reader and collective subject, would not be the direct object of advertising, could be self-reflexive rather than accusative, and it would be okay to say the simplest things. My heart was beating, or I see your face, without irony, but in the full knowledge of their history and means of production. For Reines, address is this humble and unavoidable saying of things and persons again, even or especially if we already, quote, know what we did. Because, quote, stating them is like reinstating them. Please join me in welcoming Ariana Reines.
Thank you. That was breathtaking. I'm very honored to be here, and I want to thank all of you for the hospitality you've shown me this spring. It's been really incredible. I was terrified to come here, which I'm sure you can imagine. You must have been terrified too. But I'm learning so much, and it's really been extraordinary, so thank you. I want to dedicate this to my students who are brilliant and who have been very forbearant and sane and strong in the way that they handle everything. I mean, everything. Mouth 10 inches from mic, it says. I can't measure that. Now I'm going to be tormented. 10 inches, 10 inches. So I thought I'd start with a piece of juvenilia in honor of my students. They don't write juvenilia, but I have written a lot of it. This is from the pre-cow days. Somebody left her alone for the prescribed time. They got into bed. His little cock trembled loose in its condom. The dinghy a body was going to be, it had a cock in it you could uncork. In went the bilge. The thick cock was the real cock. It had important details. Present was to content yourself with what it contained. Future was how to understand the present as having been less dismaying than it is. For into these pools shall meaning accrete in all its tardiness. These were the days. A clamp had on it a few hairs. The music was the correct thing. Something understood itself in her and made her shudder. She should let that go. The wicker air held up the moon, and the wicker air saw her. The wicker air held up the moon, and the wicker air saw her. Pooty, pissing, and Tina Turner air. Moot like a puppy in the ground. It gets longer the bigger a thing you put in it, and it gets wider, it knows. The wall of sound falls. It falls. The wall of sound falls. Well, I don't know what that's about. So I'm told that there's not going to be a Q&A session in this reading, but I wanted to extend the opportunity to all of you to ask me a question if something arises for you. I think it would be nice if you could hold it until the end of the poem. But if you really want to call out as I'm reading, it would make me feel more comfortable. So truly, if something arises for you that is just burning that you want to know, you can ask me. It doesn't need necessarily to relate to what I'm now reading or even doing. Perhaps we could talk about current events or plans for the future. I'm going to read a little bit of Coeur de Lion, and then a few other things, and then something new. And hopefully by the time the new thing comes, you'll be so like catatonic that it won't really register. When we lay down in Venice on the patio of the restaurant that was closed and hid behind the chairs and tables with the night people passing by, it was lovely. You fucked me, you came somewhere on me, I had a painful zit on my upper lip, and we were covered in dust from the stones of Venice. I photographed a broom and indecipherable monograms on the walls of Venice. You told me your story. The story made me tired and sad. I've had enough, I said. We were outside San Giorgio Maggiore. Can I finish the story? You said later. Okay, I said. I wanted to show that I could be a hospitable and generous person. It was bright and hot. Discussing interpersonal relations makes me tired and feel like an asshole. I really liked you. The day after we first had sex, I had a soft and complicated feeling. I put a condom on you and then we took it off. You fucked me without it and I liked you. I remember what you looked like as you undid your things. The condom stayed on my bedside table for the length of our stay in the hotel. The day after our first night, I had a beer with Hannes. I had sex with Jake, I said. How do you feel about that? He said. I don't know, I said. I don't know. When we were in the mountains, we straddled a big fallen tree. I was happy. It bothers me that you cut out American Apparel advertisements and taped them to your bedroom wall. The night before the day that you licked my pussy and I sucked your cock by the big fallen tree, I took a walk with John. The sky was full of stars. We walked around the valley. We got to a point. The night was cool and thick. We stopped and kissed. It was nice. When we got back to his room, he took his shirt off and I took my shirt off. We kissed more. I think I'm going to go, I said. I made some kind of excuse. You don't want to have a sleepover, he said? We could just hold each other. I went to my room and dyed my hair. I don't like it when you say take care when I take my leave of you. You were writing a book called Mein Cock. It is about your love affair with a phone sex operator, among other things. When you told me the story of you and the phone sex operator, I was moved. After you read me about 50 pages of your novel, Humble Monster, and I told you it was a terrible novel, I did not mean to say it like that. I explained some things that I did like about it, some things I thought could be reworked, and I said that I hoped that you would write the story of you and the phone sex operator, how good she was at cocksucking, how shitty her life was, her poverty, fucked up family, how she hated her body, the love you shared. I felt for her, and you spoke about her with such elegant forthrightness. The week after school ended and I was in Germany with Sinan, I got obsessed with Nazi architecture and started to read Mein Kampf online until I got blocked by the authorities. I told you all about it in an email on August 30th, and I feel that perhaps I'm somewhere, in some small way, a part of what has inspired you to write this book, Mein Kampf. On the other hand, I think your prose is sometimes shaky, and following Hitler's might not be the best idea. I guess cock could stand for Kampf, struggle, which is pretty witty, or could be, but who knows where you're going to go with that. It's really none of my business. You told me the other night that you Googled yourself and found a boring YouTube video made by a high school kid with your name. In the video, he said his name, you said, and it was so weird. Somewhere in something that you sang to me that you had written, this occurred, something about you having no name, or a name that might as well be no name at all, or no identity, and the dead generality of your childhood you'd woken up from. I thought of that Nabokov novel, Despair, and Schumann, or was it Schubert, the doppelganger. In any case, I said, how can you read so much? And you cut me off and said, and know so little? And I said, no. How can you read so much while you were writing and not become too seduced in every different direction to not betray what you were doing? I do everything in spurts, you said. When I sent you the MP3 of He's a Rebel by the Crystals, it was because I think you're a kind of rebel, the kind I like, the kind who is not afraid of what he wants and who lives in the confusion of it by reading. I also sent it to make fun of you because I think your college memories and father complex are not really much to rail against. I mean, seriously, in this world we're living in. Your arms are brown and have beautiful veins that you like. I like your hands. Your eyes are blue, but because they need so much light, your pupils are always dilated and your eyelashes are nice. You cannot cry, but sometimes you whimper as though you are crying when you want to show that you are feeling something. When you shaved your beard, your mouth was too big, and I liked it. Somebody said that this poem was voyeuristic, which never occurred to me. That never occurred to me as like a dimension of it. And then as soon as I heard that, I thought, oh, that's awful. That's just dreadful. Like, there's got to be something more going on than just looking at some horror, right? I don't know. I felt very sad about that, and now I'm suddenly feeling like I'm reading you this voyeuristic poem. So just don't picture anything. I'm picturing all of you. My friend Phil said I should picture all of you in red thongs, so I am. I really am. I forgot all about how we held hands so tight all through class, but then I remembered you were writing to Emma about how much you missed her and couldn't wait to see her during this time. I think Emma Bovary is named Emma because of some notion of English romanticism, Jane Austen, something like that. Emma is not a French name. I don't remember Madame Bovary that well, but Avital Ronell discussed it in her seminar today. Toward the beginning of the novel, dumb Charles Bovary's first wife dies, and Emma's father invites the widower Charles to dinner. Emma's father proposes that Charles go rabbiting with him, explaining that shooting a rabbit, getting off a shot, or something like that, in Paul Demand's revision of the translation by Eleonora Marx, might dissipate the tensions of his bereavement. Of course, it's not Charles's feelings Emma's father cares about. He just wants to get the transaction of his daughter's marriage over with. Anyway, it's a nice name, Emma. And the whole shooting a rabbit in order to relax enough to notice Emma thing, and how you call your Emma Bunny, well, I guess it's kind of a stretch, but I thought of you two today. I sent you that Vincent Gallo song, Honey Bunny, even though I knew it would make you think of her. Once Abigail called me Bunny in front of you, I guess because I made a face, and my heart hurt because I knew. The Perforator God, this is for Jeffrey. Oh, I just remembered something. A corsair is it's a pirate, right? But it also sounds like courser, like a horse, right? You're smiling. You agree? Okay. I can't remember, I wrote this so long ago, I can't remember if I was thinking pirate or horse. Anyway, I'm referring to a line I haven't read yet, so none of you know what I'm talking about. The Perforator God. A silver corsair in a violet distance that I am capable of imagining inside of a world in which the cashew-colored sky emits a musk of snow, is the zone in which I will lay down what's most harassed in me and make it die. A miracle of loaves and fishes, the cracked floor with its silverfish. Sorry, I'm incredibly thirsty. I took half of Bikram yoga class this afternoon. The cracked floor with its silverfish. The cookie-colored face of the black-haired man whose purple cock just spurted its last is asleep. The face is asleep, and it is attached to him as he is attached to the world. I know that there are pavilions among the lumpy mountains in which some knights sit cross-legged in their mail-in tunics and make light of the blood-red sky. It is cheering to look at pictures while the wide world slides down this faux wood log flume and does not disclose what I was sucking it for. But a loser is still a loser. A wind hover does not love me just because I'm here, since it lives in a purple that evolves into being dead, and a weather vane has a place in it. This oatmeal-shaped sky, the lovely proportions of metaphors and bedtime stories written for children after World War II, the strange mixture of fear and trust, some shattered things still husbanded by something else, mysteriouser and further off. An idea of the stars, an idea of the world. Licorice drops turn the eye holes on. A flesh wound blooms, polyps and cancers, iterative like our contemporary arts. The master of the conquest of Majorca made a painting late in the 13th century in which I understand everything, as though I were a serrated escutcheon or something perspicacious cut up, folded in, poked and soaked in what flowed out. I have a face like a sackbut. It is not a style, it is a font, a form, a foundation, awkward and somewhat alive. Maybe I fell for the sigil hidden in the letter, or the letter hidden in the picture, but its being great, albeit uneven, doesn't make me give any more of a shit, because I fell for it. They seal the thing of cheese with a lion rampant. The lion rampant has a tongue. The perfect correspondence cannot be. Cockle shell-shaped clouds bud in the dark. They people the vault with their comforting veilities. The beauty of indecision, the beauty of things that curdle and die, their exoskeletons shriveled into words that lodge themselves in the language, distant and a little strange, but not altogether unwelcoming. I will be born again as a bumblebee, dried up and dead, fried on the wooden floor of the cupola on a newly renovated Victorian house. The contractors will sweep me up with the other dried up bees. I guess everything that sucks dries up or something like that. I can insert myself into something more invisible, something smaller, the jealous, rich minds of poets, lonelier and more confused than ever, and even more eager to verify their existences, will also in the future in their crueler and deeper parts recall the parody that my death as a bee once represented. So long, suckers. A bruggen made of construction workers flattened into paper carries me heavenward. We were never women of means, but nevertheless, we managed to be poisoned by our thoughts and still do things all day. So how are you feeling? Like catatonic, like close, or no, too many smiles, you're not asleep yet. Any questions? Everything's perfectly clear, I guess. Okay, great. Honey?
What's the significance of the cocksucking?
It's a really good question. See, this is one of my students. One might well ask the poet, why all the cocksucking, right? I think that part of it, like one of the reasons why I began with that old poem with the condom, and this whole thing is like that somehow the abjection and absurdity of relating to a penis that does not belong to one seems like it needs to be taken out of the sphere of the pornographic and like reinstated into a kind of hilarity or small, like quizzical oddity that I think it deserves, because there's this kind of like false grandeur that like with which one is meant to approach the holy item. And it just seems like the more one plays with it, if you will, assuming that it does not belong to one, the more interesting things might become. I don't know. Hey, thanks. Okay, anybody else?
Will you marry me?
I'm engaged.
So,
No, I won't marry you. Marguerite Duras. It is nothing to have a ruined face or something to keep a flask and observe it trembling. Nothing, no, not at all. The pure hard word stiffening on air, a column of notes refuses all minutes, a bead burrowing down along the healed. If a note could have wintering as voices from another room gasping keep aloft the feeling of their ending, if a note could have wintering hardening the keenness at the end of a curl, incising the impossible air, a bled night, its chilled glass with a moon in it, voices from another room as a sieve of weighing and redress and a kind of mule, and they're at it harder and harder, ramming a little bit of everything. It is nothing to have a ruined face, because with it you can still crouch over berries or a stand of black grass. If there were any deeper to go, some tambourine or other, the dusk would be, or dulcet things a moth suggests in filthy light, a flimmer upon ruination that is general, corazon, my dirty hub, don't go. Assizes, wormy or vast controls and girders in the night, environmentally sound, having the white underthings and jiggy nodules an instant widowed or perfect in their singularity, is how it is, as clear as I can be. Is there more water by any chance? Oh, hello. And that's so, and a glass, I meant, so the glass makes me presume that I'm doing the wrong thing now. See? No, it's... This is why it sets people at ease to be rude, because they realize that they don't have to pour the water into the glass. And then, like, I don't know. Wait, I just lost my train of thought. Right, but like the dignity and kindness and sort of propriety of a situation can make one find that one is always failing it, right? But on the other hand, without it, then we would all probably tear each other apart. I don't really mean that. Earmark. She clasped the event to her and proceeded, fucked her steaming eye hole and ended it. The cracked thing was a doomed pigeon. It meant something yesterday. A patience would be ideal. Make an art of it. Sear notes winding their way through an air to have become the name of her going. Her name on the list and some certain information they had. After a time, there is no more accuracy. After a time, you can't get the note clean of what it might have been. Under the skirt of Mother Ginger huddle little boys and girls, a holiday shit stain. His scholarliness justifies those flights of fancy you condemn in him, and the gummy hulls of words muzzle the chaw, a kind of cud that will not do. An umlaut could be a cousin's bone, the poisoned nuance that started everything. It was from eating ourselves. It had to be someone else's sickness first, our silence, our good balance, our usefulness. There's something certain creatures long for, to be hacked up and macerated. That's having it come out and go into another body, eaten, gemmed with grease and herbs, whose low language ruined our bowels, whose lowing eventually meant nothing. We knew where we were to become, a ream of flesh, another nothing. Questions? Save the world. Your music makes me feel lonely. Your music makes me feel lonely. Your music makes me incredibly, incredibly lonely. Picking a lemon late at night, my heart tightens. I fear nature. Your music makes me feel lonely. I must be responsible for it. I'm alive. I have this hair helmet on. I'm so alive. So I say yes to the megaplex. He says, it's awful. Isn't it awful? I say, yeah. So what? Something sentimental, this place, I agree, huge, we're gonna go into the movie. The elevator of brushed metal, the first real thing as a result of the reality of this becomes this. An origin, if not the final one, also occurs here, and also only occurs here. And now, which is to say, occurs here simultaneous to the first real thing of which I am in knowing it. The day is long enough. The day is long enough. The day is so long enough to contain all this and more. I have achieved a socially adjusted state. Yes. I achieve walking and am capable of walking into the megaplex. Yeah. Needing not more than 3 or 4 minutes riding an ablution via some feint. I've completed something. Look at me. I'm not retarded. My caliber, capable of moving through the world, writing down a word, is physical but minuscule, an act. There's a squeamishness, desire to translate, hygiene. I translate something engulfing into something thought. It does not violate what I'm in. It secretes me into it. It secrets me into what is going to occur no matter what doesn't give a flying fuck, but what needs me to fuel it, like right now, the megaplex that admits the day through a wall of picture windows that give onto a blank green park, like right now, right now, right now. I guess I'm okay now, so right now I will buy a ticket, yes, and I will join my friends. They're already in there. I will go buy my ticket. I will see The Watchmen. Right now, somebody, a friend of somebody, saw it and said it was good. Inside of each made thing, a trap. At least one. I need those shoes. Describing the absence of a trap in like real life amounts in a way to making art. Fuck you. Everything has form. You have form, you asshole. You have form, you fucking asshole. This movie is about evil. What this woman wants is love and respect. She does not care that the world is ending and that the superhuman man is trying to save the evil world for humanitarian reasons. He is not paying attention to her. She wants love and respect. She wants his thoughts. This, therefore, indicates the woman and the world. Right? The trauma of something in her family that she carries and the way that trauma acts upon her romantic situation is the pattern of force through which less obvious patterns, which contribute to the end of the world, move. And moreover, it is suggested that the less obvious patterns that flow through the world, the behavior of atoms, facts of matter, it is suggested that these are consummated in the woman's emotional drama and in the justice of her demands, whose legitimacy is never questioned, the particle physics that's supposed to be profounder knowledge and the powers of the ultimate man are in the end under her control because she, in the narrowness of her demand, stands for the logic of the human world. It would be inhuman of her not to want what she wants. So what if the bitch can't act? Her emotions are supposed to be human. Because of this, her rendition of them need not be convincing. It's what her demonstrations point to. There's supposed to be an order in human emotion. This order is supposed to be understandable both inside and outside the movie, though she is more comforting than it, having, as she does, a reliable look, exaggerated order of body and hair. Whatever, fuck her. Fuck poems about movies, fuck poetry, fuck you. In the disgusting scenes, very long and very violent, I cover my eyes. My boyfriend watches, my best friend watches. I hate both of them for watching. And I guess what ended up being the big sex scene, those responsible for the movie elected to play Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen. The scene is really about this insane assassination of the song Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen. It seemed at first the song was chosen in order to murder the sex scene by ironizing the fucking, but then it seemed that after all, they wanted the fucking to look arousing, but it was so long and revolting, you know, the boring girl, the balding guy, their pelvic areas, and a bagginess to their faces in spite of this airbrushed feel, so direct, the thrusts, peevish middle-aged dolls trying so hard. This therefore led me to conclude that the scene was meant to destroy the song. Its emotions and what it means, but Hallelujah, lounge-era Leonard Cohen, already performs a distance from, even a kind of irony against itself, enclosing as it does a biblical grandeur within a cheesy atmosphere. Basically, the song's a lesson that under any vile sheen, a soul or truth can move. Maybe you know what I mean. A lot of people have covered this song and have rendered it more obviously beautiful. It's not new, but it's still around. I cover my eyes in the violent scenes. I'm so sick of violent scenes, sex scenes, blah, 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 pornography. I don't want to watch. Sometimes I watch. When I do watch, I hate myself for watching. Look, just tell me the story. I don't need the luxury of its representation. Just tell it to me. He is watching. I hear the sound of the murder. I know now he is evil. Lusciously, somebody's skull is crushed or something. He says, geez, I am evil. Every single movie, the horror, the horror, the horror, I can see that they intend to do this. I can see that they think we deserve this. We should be punished. We must want what they are punishing us for wanting. They're giving it to us. And they're definitely doing it in this way, at such length, in these colors, because they mean to. It's clear to me. They're disgruntled in Hollywood. They are blaming us for what must be their grave disappointment and sorrow, to have made so much and to be consigned to have to make so much more. These killings take so long, and the colors and the noises. If there's a movie with killing in it in 2050, the killing will have to be even bigger and longer. What will they do? Maybe the form will die. Something else will have to happen on a screen, or maybe the screens will expire. Screens are part of the world. There must be many varieties of bodies and ways to destroy them. Somehow the zest in this movie for gross and monotonous slaughter and mass death by disaster cannot be called a moral gesture, despite the film's treatment of ethical dilemmas. We paid for this. Okay, fine, I understand. Movies are for murder and sex. This can't be the first time I've known this. More people have sex than do murder, maybe, but it is the essence of life. If there were not movies, how would we grasp the essence of life? Like porno, you need not like it for it to succeed. This is such a shitty part of town. Obviously, we hate being here. We just want to see this movie. Nobody made us come here. Maybe somewhere more discerning, more intelligent people are going to see this movie in a charming and cosmopolitan locale. We are not those people. We are these people. We did not build this part of town. There is no part of town, any town, that we have built. We don't build. We want something with a better aesthetic. We have self-respect. We don't have to go to the megaplex, Starbucks. Sometimes it happens. We find ourselves in these places, the kind of consumers who consume ideals, some of which have form, all of which... Never mind. There's nothing around here. I want coffee. He starts to talk about what Starbucks means and represents. This brief operation, his talking, which resembles in part analysis, appears to comfort him. I don't know. Perverse to attempt vigilance in this climate. A little thought I have to myself, a little lie to have to myself, not going there every day, forgetting it on purpose, something massive and negating. It can consume me without my going there, by being there for me whenever I want to go there someday. Even if I never want to go there, somehow I will find myself there. Little me, not little enough. Yeah, there are worse things. I belong to this. It's built, it has me, I'm alive, I must be fed, if not today, then tomorrow. It is structures I'm allowed to move through. In me, I carry me in me. At intervals, I have to pay money, and I do pay it. I pay, I do pay, I pay, and I get. Understandable. Okay, so the kind of studious, nebbishy one has a nightmare of embracing the woman and nuclear devastation happening at the same time. That's meant to signify something about love, right? No fucking duh. There's the actress, what's her name? It's after the dream now. She's tidy, and there's her mole, familiar by now, but not charming. I'm pretty sure her face's regularity is supposed to be comforting. I'm getting the feeling. The fact that she, the woman, is coherent and her outfit is on right indicates there's hope for humanity. The 20th century, save the world. Save the world, save the world. The 20th century, save the world. Anything can pass before the eyes of a person. No, I get it. Woman is natural. She is natural but not savage. She is in order. She has right and wrong right there in her body. All origins are atrocious, right? So hers are. Even if daddy did not rape mommy, fucking is bestial and violent is the lesson. The lesson is what is produced can be a reversal. The wrong, where she begins, doesn't force her to be evil. Everybody in this movie is somewhat evil, but not her. She's normal. Oh. Poets, I can live without you. Person watching a shitty movie, there are ideas. Oh yeah, her stuff is so fresh compared to, her stuff is really fresh, yeah, compared to, care for the world, saving the world. Is this not perverse? There is an order, the world is the power. What are we? What is our care? How can I look at you? But I do. Poetry's not made of words. I find the words free tub porn in the Google browser of your computer. Did you mean to type tube? I did not ask you. I said you jack off. You said no. Oh, I remember in the morning you were in the tub reading The Wasteland. And then I left. You typed free tub porn in Google, so maybe, I don't know. My heart is pounding in my throat. When I saw free tub porn, I put your computer to sleep. I smoked a cigarette. Nothing makes my heart beat, nothing makes my heart beat, nothing makes my heart beat like free tub porn. It kills me the way the music is hard. Now I'm evil. I'm mega rage. You have this power. I'm in a white room, standing on a gold wheel. The scorpion is alongside the bull. I begin to sing and you hear me. Now I sop up your skull waist with gravel. I swing your blood bag. Your head I make my bitter meat dinner. What's that? I squirt salt down my throat. A mastodon shivers. I fist it to death. I'm better than you. No, I'm not. I'm better than you. I'm not the you I did it to. I'm better than you. I will do it to them. Now you see me. Why do they have to keep on making porno? The most impersonal art in the world. Because I am it. I nicked my shins on something slick and hard with sharp little filaments in it. Everything that is past passes into me. You think you can see me through what you see and make love to me? I can see you. I can see into you. I'm final. I love you. Because it's the end of the world. What's the difference? Go away. It's only forms. A woman writing poems produces the same effect. I can't speak of the temperature of flesh on you and how that screens me from a horror of my own temperature or somebody else's, like all the music extracting a feel. It's certain bodies and certain arrangements, cold descriptors, justify. It looks like the end of the world when I look at you. Look, all right? Unless you are in the movie, you're not in the movie. Unless you're in the movie, you are not in the movie. Culture will have her girls. Look at me, think of me, lick my pussy. When you look in my face, I'm rinsed. This is fucking, I know it. Also, you can't just say fuck. Hard death. I guess, look at me. I'm in line with the natural order, and the harangues in my mind are aligned with this order. I'm in line with the natural order, and the harangues in my mind are aligned with this order. Venturing into the sun to smoke, I am proof of nature and all its declarations. I verify, express its clarity. Without speaking or trying, I ultimate all of its history. When I sleep, it is enclosed in hot nights of nature. If I shudder, it's before nature's screens. When I kill myself, I do so inside the mind of nature. My legs transport the ideals of nature, enclosed in my body, disclosed when I emit the secret features of my familiars. Inside of nature and passing away, the faults upon the round world describe themselves upon me, and it is through this mesh of faults that I see, that I see, that I see, that I see. It is only through the fault of earth that I see, that I see, that I see. I cover my body in creams and tread the paths open to me. My mind teems with things of this world. There were months long ago during which I attempted to erect a study of evil. I ate, I admit, mainly cruelty-free meals. That was then. Now, presuming myself exterior to nothing, I enjoin you. See me, oh see me, deep in the heart of nature. See me, oh see me try to pick a scab off the world. Questions? Concerns? Yes. Oh, there's one here and then there.
What do you mean when you say poetry is not made of words?
Oh, I can't answer that, but that's an excellent question. I think that maybe if we were to meditate in silence together about that for some time, maybe we could talk about it, just you and me.
Tell us about Griselda's Real.
Oh, sure. So Griselda's Real, it's a translation project that I'm doing. She was a prostitute in Switzerland, which is like I don't know, I always enjoy very much telling people about a prostitute in Switzerland because I find that at least Americans think of Switzerland as not a sexy kind of place. It doesn't, in any way. That's neither here nor there, and I apologize to the Swiss. Not to say that they would feel insulted, but never mind. Griselidis Real was a prostitute. I think that she didn't start working as a prostitute until she was in her 30s and already had 2 children. And she just found that she was very good at it and able to make a better living after a period of illness in a hospital. So she raised her children, and her politics were very interesting. She had a sliding scale. And was a very active anarchist and organizer. And one of the ways that her organizing functioned was sex workers' rights, but also just simple reproductive rights in Switzerland. And so she was. There was this period, I guess, when all these sociologists wanted to talk with her because she had this broad experience of sexuality across class boundaries, and the gender thing was rather fixed from what I've read of her experiences, but she had this very interesting view of sort of different cultural and class ways that men's sexuality performed itself, or the ways that it was kind of suffering in the Switzerland of her day. I think the book that I'm doing covers like the 70s and 80s. Anyway, all this to say, I didn't ask for the job. It was handed to me. So I wasn't an enthusiast or something. I learned about her from the project. And the sort of poetry part of the project is her little black book, which is her list of most regular clients, usually with 3 or 4 lines of very pithy and sometimes hilarious sort of, I guess they're like annotations or notes for her to help her remember what they do and need and like and don't like, and how much to charge them, of course. And one of the things that I enjoy most about that little black book is that each entry ends with a price, which is an intriguing proposal for lines of poetry. If you could put a price on each line, I don't know. In any case, it turns out that she is deeply compassionate, and that that she does her work for the rejects and malformed monsters of her world, and it's sort of Old Testament or something. So that was kind of a long answer. Maybe we should just go to this reception. Read one more thing. All right, I guess that was ending on a There's some Leonard Cohen and Coeur de Lion, and it occurs to me that maybe he's my subject. Maybe it's all there.
Is he you?
No. But maybe somehow he's the big other or something. Maybe there's some kind of more Lacanian way that he's... Never mind. Richard the Lion-Hearted was born in 1157 in Oxford, where your nice girlfriend or ex-girlfriend went to college. Like most of the royal family at the time, Richard was essentially French, says Wikipedia. The word essentially is curious, strong. Richard grew up in France, and according to the middleages.net, spent only 6 months of his 10-year reign in England, claiming it was cold and always raining there. Your girl is British and I'm American, though it is possible that I am essentially French. Richard was called the Lion-Hearted for his military exploits. He was also very tall. It does not seem unfair to note here that he wrote poetry. He never learned English. Some sources suggest it was a desire to be memorialized in verse by troubadours that attracted him to the Crusades. Others speak of a deep spiritual need, now remembered, if at all, as the crusader held for ransom the absent father figure in the Disney Robin Hood cartoon. The historical Richard was no friend of the Jews even before he took up the cross. I quote, "When a rumor spread that Richard had ordered all Jews to be killed, the people of London began a massacre. Many Jews were beaten to death, robbed, and burnt alive. Many Jewish homes were burned down, and several Jews were forcibly baptized. Some sought sanctuary in the Tower of London, and others managed to escape," unquote. When I was reading your email account, I noticed a curious motif, a certain derision about Jews, especially female ones, in your messages to Emma. I thought it was cute, though, the way she called you rabbi, since you teach at a yeshiva and everything. When we were lucky enough to be in Venice together, me because of my Stafford loan, and you because of your skill trading stocks and commodities, or maybe because of the backing of your family, I don't know, I enjoyed the things you said about Palladio and the Renaissance, even though orderly experiments with perspective aren't my thing. I'm more into Paolo Uccello, the ghetto, etc. I told you about the red stone of the Strasbourg Cathedral and that I feel a heat from Gothic buildings that feels so human, like geometry and plants fucked each other and went insane. Maybe this is why you call me a goth? Whatever. When a person goes far away to an old place, a person is trying to feel something about a world being possible. It is easier to fall in love far away from everything familiar. As I write this, there is still a planet. You have a daddy complex, and I have a mommy complex. We do not want to fuck the Venus of Willendorf. You were into saying that I have an obscene smile. The morning after our first night, you told me my pussy smells good like Swiss cheese. That grossed me out. But then we talked about the strange carnality of cheese, fermented things, how they're more unsettlingly animal somehow than animal flesh. In Venice, I bummed a cigarette from a cute Italian girl, and I watched you put your fork into an assortment of cheeses. I tasted one, and it was so strong, I thought I'd faint. There was wine. You paid for most, but not all of it. That fancy quince paste, olives too, how could I forget? The moon was very big. I felt tired and exposed, but brave. We both said it was good. Thanks.
So like she said, there's a reception down the hall with wine and food, and you can keep asking her questions and talk to each other too. Thank you for coming.